As they've popped up here and there throughout X-Men history, I've always had a strong fascination with the Hellions. The Hellions in Emma Frost, Massachusetts Academy are a very interesting and fun foil to the New Mutants and Professor Xavier's school. Two of the students I felt a particular draw to are Cat's Eye, and then Firestar, who, later ends up being a member of the New Warriors, and I love that series as well, so I decided to check out her origin story. Firestar's limited series is this intense coming-of-age story about Angelica Jones, who is Firestar, titular character, and her time as a student at Emma Frost, Massachusetts Academy. And at its core, it's a story about grooming, manipulation, overcoming obstacles, and discovering how strong you truly are. Frankly, it reminded me a lot of the Magic miniseries that I've also covered on this channel. The themes, at least, are parallel to each other with this attempt to take an innocent child and manipulate them into some sort of tool of destruction. This is more grounded in, I want to say, reality in this story, but obviously it's a comic book world with mutants and powers and all that jazz, but it does feel a lot more human and less magical in scope than the Magic miniseries. This is Angelica in school going through these battles versus Illyana in limbo with demons going through these battles. And that's not to diminish this story. It's actually, I think, really humanizing to view it through this more common lens that is closer and probably a lot more relatable to our own lives. If you don't already know a lot about Firestar, then that's perfectly understandable. I don't think she's utilized that often, and, I haven't seen her pop up that much in my X-Men reading or my general Marvel reading. And, you don't need to know much about her coming into this, since it's an origin story. But what I'll tell you is that at the start of this, she's a 13-year-old girl who's a little idealistic, can be a little too trusting, and is probably a little too naive. And she's about to have her mutant powers manifest themselves, which is the power to create and manipulate microwave radiation energy. We start with actually getting a pretty decent glimpse of Angelica's life before her mutant powers manifest themselves. It's a common theme in these mutant books, the idea of feeling like an outsider, and honestly, a teen girl who moves from school to school because of her dad's job, trying to fit in, is a pretty effective way to communicate that. She lives with her father and her grandmother, and we immediately get this sort of interesting metaphor for Angelica's uniqueness, but also how naive and innocent she is. Her grandmother tells her she's a very special girl because of this M on her hand that her palm lines make. And we're going to discover through the course of this story that that's not really a special marking or anything. A lot of people's hands have those. Honestly, go ahead and check yours right now. I don't have one personally, but I know a lot of people do have that M on their hand. And as she's in her first new school of this series, which is just a normal public school, and she faces bullying and being an outsider, she often stares at her palm and at that M, and it's sort of this way to ground herself and to remind herself that she is special and nobody can take that away. Now, this is sort of the first layer of disillusionment that's going to hit Angelica in this story, because eventually her bullies tell her that doesn't make her special at all, actually. We all have that. Or not all of us, but a lot of us have that. Now, that hurts Angelica a lot, because to her, it means that her grandmother lied to her. She's a teen and doesn't really understand that her grandmother had altruistic motives telling her that. It was something that made her special, it's trying to hype her up. And I haven't mentioned it yet, but her powers have also been starting to show up. And they are pretty dangerous powers, really. And that becomes something else in the series later that we'll talk about, but, at first she makes a milk carton explode on her teacher. That's fairly innocent. But in this moment of learning that her grandmother lied, her bullies wrecked her ice sculpture for this random ice sculpting contest her school was doing, and she's having a lot of emotional turmoil dealing with all of this, and she lets off a more powerful blast of microwave energy that basically just melts all the other ice sculptures. And sadly, to make matters worse, when Angelica comes home to talk about all of this with her grandmother, who's generally a kinder and more supportive figure than her father, her grandmother had a heart attack and passed away. Now, that's a bad hand to be dealt. She's now dealing with grief, bullying, new dangerous mutant powers, and look, she's a child basically, so she doesn't know how to process any of that. So she does what a child does and lets her father in on the secret, and it's a plea for help really, but he doesn't know what to do either. He's got his emotions, life pains, and all that he's dealing with too, and unfortunately it seems like he kind of neglects his daughter's feelings as he tries to juggle his own. Luckily, there is a school for mutants that can take in Angelica and unburden this family of their problems. Well, there's actually two schools for mutants, and the Xavier Institute fails to reach out to Angelica before Emma Frost's Massachusetts Academy does. And Emma, being a devil in disguise, already begins with the manipulation, latching on to the M mark on Angelica's hand and telling her that, yeah, everyone has one, but yours actually is special, blah blah blah. And Angelica falls for that, and her father is very happy to relinquish her, it seems, and so starts Angelica's enrollment in her new school under the private mentorship of Emma Frost, the White Queen. So narratively, Emma has a plan for Angelica that is slowly unraveled in the next 2 issues of the series, but I'm going to lay it out for you now for context reasons. Basically, Emma and Shaw of the Hellfire Club realize Angelica actually has the potential to be like a really powerful mutant and a really effective assassin, so they want to groom her into being that. To gain complete control over her, Emma gaslights her into thinking her powers are unstable and she lacks control, and if she uses them without like Emma's help, she's gonna kill people and it's gonna be really dangerous. And she also uses this gold band that she gives to Angelica that I guess somehow helps heighten the effect of Emma's powers, because she utilizes it to like plant anti-X-Men sentiments into Angelica's head, basically trying to brainwash her. And the ultimate goal of all this is to train this innocent child into being a ruthless killer so that she can take out someone specific that is threatening the Hellfire Club. And that person is Selene, the Black Queen. That's right, Emma is grooming Angelica, a 13-year-old kid who just got her powers, to go assassinate the 17,000-year-old mutant who's basically a vampiric goddess and watched Rome fall. It is a suicide mission. And they say that a few times, but I guess they figured both Selene and Angelica would die in the fight, but honestly, no. Firestar would absolutely get whomped at this stage, at least. But okay, yeah, they had an idea at least. Alright, this next part, let me preface by saying, look, I am the biggest defender of Emma Frost. I think she is the greatest gift that the X-Men comics have ever given us, and I don't particularly like the way that she's characterized in this. It's written by Tom DeFalco and not Claremont, and I think that results in a more one-dimensional, evil Emma Frost rather than the nuanced, actually caring for her students but having a more extremist ideology and strict teaching style Emma Frost. I'm about to go into some detail about all of the awful things she does to gaslight, gatekeep, and girlboss Firestar in this book, and we have to accept that it happened, but I'm going to semi-justify it by saying, and this has been subtly referenced when talking about Emma Frost's past before in some of the more modern books, but hey, cocaine is a hell of a drug, and Emma clearly wasn't in the right state of mind here. Look, as an Emma fan, I have to have that as my headcanon, but now let's proceed with how truly despicable she is in this book. So we talked about how Emma says Firestar is too dangerous and isolates her from the other Hellions to get a stronger chokehold on her. We also talked about her implanting anti-X-Men sentiment and images into her brain, but it gets worse. First of all, for context, Angelica has been given a bodyguard who is with her at all times by Emma. This is Randall, and Firestar says that Randall and Emma Frost are her best friends at the Academy, which is really just because those are the only 2 people she's allowed to freely interact with. Emma is also constantly, through rhetoric and her powers, attempting to adjust Angelica's mental attitude about being a mutant and how humans look at mutants, basically trying to radicalize her and push her towards more violent extremist outbursts. But really, we need to talk about one of the most heartless acts Emma commits in this book. As a pastime at the Institute, Angelica has this horse. This horse's name is Butterrum, and she rides Butterrum for fun. And at one point, Emma lets Angelica go to this dance that the Academy is hosting. The new mutants are there, some X-Men chaperone, and it's supposed to be an opportunity for Angelica to actually socialize. And she does, and it's shaping up to be a good night, and she has her first kiss actually with Cannonball. But then Emma telepathically yells at her for doing that, and she's like, that's so dangerous, you could have killed him. And then, as Firestar is freaking out about that, Emma rigs the barn that Butterrum is in to catch on fire. Then Butterrum comes out, Firestar grabs her, Butterrum dies, and Emma makes Angelica think that she killed Butterrum. She gaslights her into thinking she was the cause of her favorite horse's death. But really, we learn that Emma telepathically stopped the horse's heart. just to get an even firmer grip on Angelica. And it's awful. I gasped, and it sucks because Angelica really looks up to Emma. So anytime something tragic happens that Emma is really causing, Angelica just slips deeper and deeper into Emma's grip. Another atrocity for your consideration: Firestar's training is going very well, however she lacks the ruthlessness to want to kill, like any good soul would want to avoid, right? So in order to push her towards this, Emma sets up this interaction that causes a riot of anti-mutant sentiment, where people attack not only Angelica, who can defend herself, but also her helpless father, who gets beat up and is in real danger, and this pushes Firestar to use her powers to put somebody in the hospital in critical condition, which Emma is very pleased with. It worked out for her. And remember Randall, the bodyguard? Well, he's about had enough of this at this point and can't sit by idly anymore. So he's going to warn Firestar, but Emma Frost has a grip on really everyone at this institute because, she can read minds. So she stops him and she tells Firestar that Selene killed him, when really Emma is just holding him hostage and planning to put him in a vegetative state later. Emma also fakes this drive-by shooting attempt that's supposed to be an attempt on Emma's life, so that Emma can say, hey, your two best friends are me and Randall? Well, they tried to kill me, Selene tried to kill me, that was what the drive-by shooting was, and Selene did kill Randall, so you gonna kill Selene or what? And Firestar is so far down the hole of despair and mind games at this point, she's like, yeah, I am, because I have to. Because at this point, Emma has twisted her perception of right and wrong so much that she thinks that killing Selene is the only solution here. And the very last issue in this series is so explosive, intense, and satisfying. Basically, Randall gets out before Emma Frost can put him in a vegetative state. He goes and he warns Firestar about everything that Emma's done so far. So now Firestar knows the truth. Unfortunately, Randall does die because, he had to fight guards to get to Firestar's room, and he ends up bleeding out. But so Firestar is pissed at Emma now, and was right about to go try to get into a suicide fight with Selene. And now all that pent-up anger, that aggression, all those emotions pivot and are directed towards Emma. And look, I love Emma. That's no secret. I never hide that from anyone, and I say it every chance I can. But Emma, rightfully so, deserves to get her butt kicked in this series. And Firestar just starts absolutely demolishing everything around her, starts destroying Emma pretty much. Emma's trying to stop her telepathically, but Firestar's you trained me way too well. Emma is in her own little version of the danger room and is directing all these weapons at Firestar. Firestar's dodging them, blowing them up effortlessly because she's so hyper fixated on the anger and despair that has been caused to her by Emma Frost, and she wants retribution. And finally, she gets Emma Frost trapped in a corner, just scared at what the potential of Firestar is now. Man, look at this monster I created. Hopefully this is an eye-opening experience for Emma Frost, and moving forward, she treated her students better. But Firestar does this incredible fake out where she pretends like she's about to burn off Emma Frost's face. And this was another moment where I was like, oh my god, and I was gasping as I was reading. And I don't know why. It's I know Emma Frost's face is fine in modern continuity, but the moment was really powerful. And, Firestar doesn't do it because she's not that person. No matter what, she wasn't the monster. She wasn't the assassin that Emma Frost was trying to turn her into, because Firestar is her own person with her own strengths and her own innate moral compass that wouldn't allow her to do that. But it was a message to Emma Frost, hey, don't mess with me because I will annihilate you. And so she cuts ties with Emma Frost in the Massachusetts Academy, and she goes back to living with her father. And then, later on, it's not in this series, but she joins the New Warriors, and she starts to build back up from there. So what are the key takeaways of this story? Well, to me, it's another one of those inspirational coming into your own identity stories of the X-Men. It leaves kind of a shaky place for Angelica because she's been disillusioned of everything she believed in for the past couple of years or semesters while she was at the Massachusetts Academy. Basically her life there was a lie, right? Now she's got a long journey to heal from those scars of her abuser, but it's still inspiring that in the moment where it really counted, she stepped up, she believed in herself, she displayed her courage and her compassion, and became more comfortable with herself and her powers in the process. It's an incredible thing for a teenager to learn to be strong for themselves and to stand up to their oppressors, right? Life knocked her down so many times, but in the end, it could not corrupt her soul. And she doesn't need to look at the M mark on her hand to anchor herself anymore, because now she knows what's truly in her heart. Thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. It's fun for me to make. Please like, comment, and subscribe. More videos will be coming soon.